It was supposed to be an ordinary Tuesday, just another day of keeping my head down, of avoiding Dylan Hayes and his pack of hyenas who thought tormenting me was a team sport. But the thing about Dylan was he always found me. He had this way of finding me when I least wanted to be seen, like some kind of predator who smelled fear or boredom. Maybe tormenting me was his after-school hobby. Some kids did basketball practice. Some kids did debate club. Dylan, he cornered me. And here he was again. "Hey, Noah." His voice draws smooth as poison. His hand slapped against the locker right beside my head with a dull thunk caging me in. I froze. The hallway around us was thinning out. The last bell had rung 10 minutes ago. Most people had already scattered, but not him. "Didn't see you at lunch today," he went on, leaning in close, his breath annoyingly warm against my ear. What's wrong avoiding me? God, he was infuriating. I pressed my back against the cold metal of the lockers, clutching my books tighter to my chest. He was too close, taller, broader. I hated how easily he boxed me in. "Maybe I just didn't feel like having my tray flipped," I muttered, trying for casual. He chuckled low in his throat. "Ah, come on, don't be like that." His eyes flicked over my face, sharp but almost curious. "You'd miss me if I stopped. Admit it." I rolled my eyes to my stomach twisted. "Right, I'd throw a party." He grinned, dimples carving into his cheeks, stupidly perfect teeth catching the light. God, why did dimples even exist? Why did he have to be him? If he wasn't running his mouth, if he wasn't making my life hell, he'd almost be. No, not going there. But the thought still crept in uninvited. When he was quiet, he looked unfairly good. The sharp line of his jaw, his messy brown hair, and his impeccable sense of style. I hated myself for noticing it. Dylan leaned closer, his hand shifting on the locker so that his arm brushed my shoulder. "You know," he said softly, mockingly, "you get this little crease between your eyebrows when you're annoyed. Kind of cute." I could feel my pulse in my ears. He loved doing this, hovering, taunting, slipping words under my skin until they stuck like splinters. I wanted him to shut up. Just shut up for once in his goddamn life. And before I even thought it through, before my brain could catch up with my body, I grabbed a fistful of his jacket, yanked him down, and kissed him. And my world shattered into silence. His lips were soft, warm, frozen in shock. His body went stiff against mine, like I just short-circuited every cocky cell in his body. For one impossible heartbeat, I wasn't the victim, and he wasn't a bully. He was just Dylan, and I hated how right it felt. I stayed like that for God knows how long, feeling his incredible, soft lips pressed against mine. And there was a sharp gasp, a muffled scream, the unmistakable sound of someone's phone camera clicking. My blood ran cold as the reality slammed into me. I just kissed Dylan Hayes in the hallway, gig, in public. I shoved him back, stumbling a step, my face burning. My lips tingled, my lungs forgot how to work. Dylan just stared at me, wide-eyed, his usual smirk, nowhere in sight. He looked shaken, and somehow that scared me more than his grin ever had. "Holy, I'm easy!" Julian's voice exploded behind me. My best friend materialized out of the thinning crowd, his jaw hanging open like he just witnessed a car crash in slow motion. He grabbed my arm while pulling me away. "Noah, did you just..." He choked on a laugh. "You kissed him!" I wanted to melt into the floor. My voice cracked. I didn't... My chest heaved. Around us, whispers rippled 100 versions of a story already mutating into rumor. My stomach twisted tighter. "And then Noah!" Dylan's voice cracked through the crowd like a whip. My blood iced over. He was still standing there, his face flushed, his fist clenched. His eyes locked on me like a predator that had just been wounded. The hallway went dead quiet. Students shifted back instinctively, parting like water around him. And when his voice rose again, sharper, angrier, "No!" It didn't sound like a boy calling out to a classmate. It sounded like a promise. Julian's grip tightened on my wrist. His eyes were wide, but still glinting with that twisted amusement only he could manage. "Nope, not sticking around for the murder scene." Before I could even move, he yanked me hard, dragging me down the hallway. My sneakers squeaked against the tiles as the crowd exploded with chatter behind us. Hey daydreamers, thanks for tuning in. If you're liking this story so far, tell us where you're listening from in the comments section and hit the subscribe and notification buttons so you don't miss any story uploads. Let's continue. Julian didn't stop dragging me until we were outside. Behind the bleachers were the track team, who usually smoked when the coaches weren't looking. My sneakers skidded against the dirt as he shoved me into the narrow space between the metal stands and the fence. "Okay," he said, doubled over, panting like he'd just run from the cops. His eyes were wild, his grin almost manic. "Okay, what the hell was that?" I pressed my back against the fence, clutching my books to my chest like a shield. My lungs burned, but it wasn't just from the sprint. My heart hadn't stopped hammering. Julian straightened, pointing at me with both hands like I just committed the ultimate sin. "You kissed him! You kissed Dylan freaking Hayes in front of everybody!" "Noah, my guy, you've officially lost your damn mind." "Shut up!" I hissed, though my face burned hotter at the words. "I didn't. I wasn't thinking." "Clearly." He leaned against the bleachers, shaking his head. "You've survived 3 years of harassment, dodged like 50 wedgies and 2 locker shelves, and your grand move is kissing him." His voice pitched higher, mocking disbelief. "Bro, iconic but also insane." I groaned and slid down the fence until I was sitting on the ground, hugging my knees. My stomach churned. All I could see was Dylan's face, the way his smirk had cracked when I pulled him down. It felt so good, not the kiss's reaction to it. Julian crouched beside me, his grin softening into something closer to concern. "Hey, you okay? You look like you saw a ghost." "I just made everything worse," I muttered. "Way worse." He tilted his head. "Depends how you look at it. On one hand, yes, Dylan is probably planning your slow and painful demise. On the other, you kissed him before he could humiliate you again. That's like you flipped the script, man. Nobody's ever done that to him before." I buried my face in my arms. I wasn't trying to flip anything. I just wanted him to stop talking just for 1 second. Julian's tone was teasing now, like he knew he'd caught me. And the most logical way to do that was to put your lips on his. Totally normal. Totally straight boy behavior. I shoved his shoulder without looking up. "Shut up!" He laughed, leaning back on his heels. "Relax, dude. I'm not judging. I'm just saying this is going to spread like wildfire. Half the school's probably already texting it around." My stomach dropped further. "You think?" "Oh, I know." He pulled out his phone, tapped the screen, and winced dramatically. "Yep, group chat's already lit. Someone got a video. You and Dylan are officially trending." I groaned louder, dragging my hands down my face. "Kill me now," Julian smirked. "Sorry, can't. I need front row seats to Dylan's revenge arc." "He's not going to let this slide, man. He'll either murder you or marry you." I peeked at him through my fingers. "What the hell kind of options are those?" "The dramatic kind. You've met him, right?" I almost laughed, but the knot in my chest was too tight, because beneath the panic and embarrassment there was something else I couldn't shake. The feel of Dylan's lips against mine. Still frozen in shock, the bleachers groaned above us, snapping me back. Voices, footsteps, and then his voice. Dylan's low, sharp cutting through the air. No, my blood iced. He was close. Julian pressed a finger to his lips, eyes wide, and dragged me deeper into the shadows. My heart hammered so hard, I swore Dylan could hear it under the metal stands. We crouched breathless as his steps crunched nearby, alone this time. And the way he said my name wasn't loud or mocking. It was low, dangerous, like a promise. Julian's grip tightened on my sleeve. "Don't move," he whispered. We stayed there silent till Dylan's footsteps and voice drifted away. Julian let out a shaky laugh. "Congrats, dude. You're officially prey." I shoved him weakly. "Not funny, not wrong." He leaned back, exhaling. "It doesn't look like he will let this go." And he was right. I wonder what Dylan would do next. Walking into school the next morning was like stepping onto a stage I hadn't auditioned for. The second I pushed through the front doors, heads turned. Conversations dipped, then swelled again like crashing waves. Whispers, muffled laughs, the occasional not-so-subtle snicker. Someone's phone lit up with a freeze frame of me. My stomach dropped. Julian fell in a step beside me, loud on purpose like he could shield me with volume. "Don't look at them. They're just jealous you got to his lips first." "Julian," I muttered, clutching my backpack strap. "What, I'm serious. Half the school would line up for a chance. You just skipped the line." His grin was wicked, but his eyes flicked nervously at the crowd around us. "Still don't relax. This is shark-infested waters, bro." No kidding. Every step felt like dragging lead. I could feel them looking at me, waiting for the show. Not one person mentioned Dylan, but they didn't need to. The air itself buzzed with his absence, like the whole building was holding its breath until he appeared. I try not to think about it. I try not to think about him. Of course I failed. Dylan Hayes had been haunting me long before yesterday. It started in sophomore year, one stupid class history. I think he'd been slouched in his chair tossing a pen in lazy circles giving half an answer when a teacher called on him. Wrong answer. I didn't even mean to say anything. It just slipped out. Reflex. Actually, it was 1649, not 1647. The teacher had smiled, nodded, and praised me. The class chuckled. Dylan's ears had gone red. And that was it. From that day, I wasn't just another face in the hallway. I was his target. At first, it was little things. Shoves when he passed, whispered jabs as night comment in class. But then it grew. The shoves got harder. The comments sharper, until eventually the other guys he used to bother me backed off because Dylan had staked a claim. No one touched me unless it was him, and he always gets away with it. Dylan Hayes was the co-captain of the football team. Tall, broad shoulders, golden brown hair that always fell into his eyes just enough to make him look carelessly perfect. A grin sharp enough to slice you open. Even the teachers liked him. He had that magnetic charm when he wanted to. But when his eyes were on me, that charm twisted into something else, something hungrier. And now after yesterday, I didn't know what those eyes would look like. Julian elbowed me lightly as we walked. Still no sign of him. That's almost scarier. Huh? I swallowed hard. He was right. Dylan's absence was worse than his presence. Every time I turned a corner, I expected him to be there. By third period, my nerves were shredded. I ducked in the bathroom just to breathe, splashing cold water on my face. That's when the door swung shut behind me, the heavy click echoing off the tiles. I didn't have to turn around to know he was here. I caught his reflection in the mirror. Towering, silent, sleeves shoved up to his elbows, veins stark against his forearms, his jaw clenched, lips pressed tight. Noah, he said low. The sound of my name in his mouth rattled down my spine. I gripped at the sink. What? My voice cracked pathetic. He stepped closer, not smirking, not joking, just studying me with a look I couldn't read. His eyes flicked over my face, lingering on my mouth. Why? It wasn't a question, it was a demand. I blinked. Why what? He scoffed, sharp and humorless. Don't play stupid. Why'd you kiss me? Heat rushed up my neck. My tongue stuck to the roof of my mouth. I just wanted you to shut up. His eyes narrowed. He leaned in close enough that I could feel the heat radiating off him. That's it? I nodded too quickly. That's it? But even I didn't believe it. And from the way his jaw ticked, neither did he. His hand shot out suddenly, bracing against the wall beside my head. My breath hitched. He wasn't touching me, but the nearness was suffocating. You think you can humiliate me in front of everyone and just walk away? His voice was low, dangerous but not loud. I forced myself to meet his unsteady eyes. I don't know what you're talking about, I lied. His lips curved into a sneer. This isn't over. He pushed off the wall and walked out the door, swinging shut behind him. I sagged against the sink, my whole body trembling. Moments later, the door cracked open again. Julian poked his head in, eyes darting around. He didn't kill you. I shook my head numbly. Julian stepped in, eyebrows raised. Weird. Maybe he's planning something slow. Torture, psychological warfare. He whistled. Damn, bro. You're screwed. But like in a different way now. I buried my face in my hands. And for the first time since yesterday, I realized he was right. Dylan hadn't been angry the way I expected. He'd been unsettled. And that was somehow scarier than anything. By Thursday, the whispers had simmered down. Every time I walked into a classroom, I felt the ice. Every time I sat down, I swore I heard my name hissed 2 rows over. But it wasn't the noise that had my nerves buzzing. It was the silence. Specifically, his silence. Dylan hadn't done anything in 2 whole days. No locker shoves, no mockery in class. No casual trip in the hallway. Nothing. It was like he'd evaporated, which was worse because when Dylan Hayes went quiet, it wasn't because he'd lost interest. It was because he was waiting. So when I saw him leaning against my locker that afternoon, arms crossed, smirk tugging at his mouth, my stomach dropped to the floor. Miss me. His voice was casual, lazy, but there was an edge under it. Always was. I tightened my grip on my books. Move. He arched a brow, pushing off the locker with infuriating ease. That's it, no hello, no apology. For what? I shot back before I could stop myself. His grin widened sharp enough to draw blood. For assaulting me in the hallway, maybe. I rolled my eyes even as heat crept up my neck. Right, because you didn't deserve it. He rumbled in his throat, stepping closer. Too close. Close enough that I could smell his cologne, something clean, sharp, almost citrus. Close enough that I had to tilt my chin up to keep his face in view. I swallowed hard. His gaze flicked down lower at my mouth. He lingered there 1 second, 2, 3. He wasn't smirking now. His expression was what focused like he was debating something. And for the smallest, most terrifying sliver of a moment, I thought, he's going to do it. He's going to kiss me. My breath caught. I couldn't move. The sound of footsteps broke it. A teacher strode past at the end of the hall, jangling keys. Dylan jerked back his mask, slamming into place so fast I almost missed the crack. His palm slapped the locker beside my head with a sharp bang. I flinched. Careful, nerd, he muttered, voice low, almost a growl. One day you'll choke on that smart mouth of yours. There was classic Dylan. He pushed off the locker and strolled away like nothing had happened, like he hadn't just short-circuited my entire nervous system. I pressed my back against the locker, struggling to breathe. My lips tingled, phantom and guilty. I told myself I imagined it. He wasn't going to kiss me. Of course not. Why would he? He hated me. He made my life hell for a year. And yet the image wouldn't leave my head. Dylan staring at my mouth. The air between us charged thick enough to choke on. This was different. At dinner that night, I barely touched my food. Mom asked if I was sick. I shook my head. I wasn't sick. I was haunted. Haunted by a boy who was supposed to be my enemy, but suddenly felt like something else. Something I couldn't name without my chest tightening and my stomach flipping in the worst, most dangerous way. The next day in class, Julian leaned over and whispered out of the corner of his mouth, "He's watching you again." I didn't look. I didn't need to. I could feel it. Julian snorted softly. "Bro, it's creepy. He looks at you like you're dessert." Kind of disturbing, man. I kicked his shin under the desk, but the word stuck. Dessert. And God help me. Part of me wondered what it would feel like to be eaten alive. So maybe I had the craziest crush on my bully. Dylan kind of left me alone after that, contrary to what I thought was going to happen. And honestly, I was grateful for the peace, at least until history class. The teacher handed out slips of paper, the room buzzing with chatter as they passed. Down the rows. Partner assignments for a project. Julian, it read in neat type. Relief washed over me like cool water. Finally, something normal. Julia might be a pain sometimes, but at least he wasn't. A shadow fell across my desk. Before I could react, the slip was plucked out of my hand. "Thanks, Dylan," Hayes said, flashing a grin that made my chest seize. "I'll take it from here." I blinked. "What, no, mate? Give that back." He leaned down close enough that only I heard his words. "You and me, nerd, history." Fitting, don't you think? Blood rushed to my face. No, absolutely not. Dylan just winked and sauntered up to the teacher's desk, handing over the slip. "We're switching. I want Noah." The teacher frowned, but didn't argue. By the time class ended, I was shaking with fury. I stormed to the front, clutching my backpack. "This isn't fair. You already paired me." The teacher held up a hand. "Partners are final. It's done." I stood there gaping. Dylan leaned casually against the doorframe, waiting, a smirk tugging at his lips. The teacher gave me a sympathetic shrug. "Make the best of it, Noah. Sometimes you don't get to choose your partners." Heat flared in my chest. I spun on my heel and shoved past Dylan. He followed like a shadow, chuckling under his breath. "Guess we're stuck together," he drawled. "I'm not doing this with you," I snapped. "Oh, you are?" His smirk widened. "See you after school. Your place." By 7 p.m., Dylan was already at my house. I regretted opening the door the second I did. Dylan filled the threshold like he owned it, hoodie hanging loose, backpack slung over one broad shoulder. He glanced past me into the house, curiosity flickering in his eyes. "My place is off limits," he said before I could protest. "So we're here." I ground my teeth but stepped aside. "Fine, just don't touch anything," he smirked. Stepping into the hallway, his gaze snagging on the wall of family photos. Baby pictures, birthday cakes. Me with missing teeth, grinning like an idiot. Dylan stopped. His smirk faltered just slightly. His eyes lingered on one picture of me with my mom, arms around each other, messy frosting smeared across my cheek. "What?" I demanded, uneasy. He shrugged the mask, snapping back into place. "Didn't know you were so photogenic." I flushed. "Shut up." But his tone hadn't carried the usual bite. It was softer, almost wistful. At the kitchen table, we spread our notes. He leaned back in his chair like he had no intention of working, spinning a pen between his fingers. Come on, I said, exasperated. We have to at least outline something. He tilted his head, studying me. You're cute when you're bossy. You know that. My stomach flipped. Do you ever stop? Not when it's this fun? I glared at him, but the sharp edge of his teasing wasn't there anymore. It felt different, less cruel, more like he was flirting. Who calls another guy cute? We spread books and notes across the kitchen table. I expected him to clown around, but for a while, he actually wrote bullet points. His handwriting was surprisingly neat. You're actually smart when you're not being a jock or a straight-up menace, I muttered. His pen stilled. He looked up, brow arched. You think you're the only one with brains? Rivers, I blinked at the sharpness in his tone. Then softer, he added, just because I play doesn't mean I don't think. I forced myself to look at the notes again. Could have fooled me. He huffed a laugh, but it wasn't mocking. More like he wasn't sure what to do with himself. We worked in a strange rhythm after that. Bickering stitched between actual progress. It wasn't awful until the silence stretched and the question burned out of me before I could stop it. Why me? I blurted. He stilled. What? Why do you spend so much energy making my life miserable? My voice cracked, but I pushed on. You could have picked anyone else. Why me? Dylan didn't have a quick comeback. Instead, his jaw ticked. You wouldn't get it, he muttered. Try me, I said softly. His eyes flicked away. Then snapping back like he couldn't decide whether to sneer or confess, and instead of speaking, he leaned across the table and kissed me. It was rough, desperate, his hand fisting in my shirt as if he hated himself for wanting it. My chair screeched against the tile as he dragged me forward, lips crushing mine. Shock held me still for a heartbeat. Then heat surged through me, drowning every rational thought. My fists clenched on the table's edge, heart thundering. I didn't push him away. I didn't even want to. Noah, dinner's almost ready. My mom's voice cut the air. We tore apart quickly. Dylan's eyes were wide, panicked. He shoved back his chair, grabbed his bag, and bolted for the door. I sat there trembling, lips tingling, heart racing, so heart hurt, completely shocked, completely shattered, and more confused than terrified. The next day felt like I'd woken up inside someone else's skin. My lips still tingled. Every time I caught my reflection in the bathroom mirror, I remembered the press of Dylan's mouth, hard and furious like he wanted to erase me and brand me at the same time. And the worst part, I hadn't hated it. Now trudging down the hallway with my books hugged to my chest, I scanned for him without meaning to. Dylan always found me, but this time he didn't. He walked past me with his crew, loud laughing elbows flying like I didn't exist. Not even shove into the lockers, not a smirk, not a word. His eyes slid right over me like I was nothing. It shouldn't have stung. It should have been a relief, but the ache in my chest betrayed me. Julian noticed. He's ignoring you, he muttered, nudging me with his elbow. Honestly, good. Take the win. But it didn't feel like a win. It felt like losing something I never asked for, but had gotten used to his attention. Lunch was worse. We sat at our usual corner table, trays pushed between us. Julian kept chattering about the project due in chemistry, about how Mr. Jacobs was definitely out to fail him. But my attention snagged again and again across the cafeteria. Dylan at his table. Golden boy surrounded by laughter and noise. His green flashed arm draped over the back of his chair. He leaned in close when one of his teammates cracked a joke. He looked carefree, untouchable, as if yesterday hadn't happened, as if that case hadn't happened. I stabbed at my mashed potatoes hard enough to snap the plastic fork. Julian gave me a side eye. Okay, what did those potatoes ever do to you? I opened my mouth ready with some deflection when a shadow fell across our table. Well, if it isn't the fairy himself, a voice sneered. My stomach dropped. I hadn't heard that voice up close in almost a year. Not since Dylan had made me his personal target. It was Tyler, one of my old tormentors. Not brave enough to touch me anymore, but brave enough to sneer from a safe distance. His words hit like acid, pulling up memories I'd buried. The time they yanked my pants down in gym. The wedgies that left. Bruises! The names hissed in my ear until I skipped lunch for a week straight and cried under the bleachers, where no one could see. Back then, I thought school would kill me. I think I should be grateful to Dylan. As much as he had turned my life into hell, at least he'd pushed the others out. Tyler and his crew had vanished the second Dylan claimed me as his favorite target. Julian stiffened beside me. Seriously, Tyler, don't you have better things to do? Tyler ignored him, eyes locked on me, smirk curling. Word is you like jokes. Rivers should have told me sooner. I could have shown you a real good time. My skin crawled, my mouth went dry. The cafeteria noise swirled around us, distant, muffled. I wanted to say something, anything, but my throat closed up. Tyler chuckled, leaning closer. Oh, what's wrong? Cut out your tongue. And then back off! The words sliced through the cafeteria to noise like a blade. Dylan stood just behind Tyler, hands in his pockets, shoulders loose, but his eyes were coiled steel. Tyler's smirk faltered. Relax, Hayes. We're just... No. Dylan's tone was low, final. You're not anything. No one touches him except me. His harsh voice domineering, causing conversations in the hall to dip. Even a clatter of trays seemed to pause. Dylan didn't raise his voice, but everyone heard it. Everyone felt it. Tyler tried to laugh it off, but it came out thin. Fine, he's all yours. His lip curled around the words like he was spitting venom. Then he jerked his chin at his buddies and stalked off, pretending he wasn't retreating. My heart hammered against my ribs. Dylan was still there, still staring, not smirking, not sneering, just staring at me like he wanted to say something, but didn't know how. But then he turned and walked away. His shoulders rolled back into the swagger of his crew, swallowed by noise and laughter like nothing had happened. I sat frozen, pulse racing. Gratitude warred with confusion in my chest until I couldn't tell one from the other. Julian jabbed me in the side. Dude, did that just happen? For a minute, I thought he was going to flip our whole lunch tray in your face. But nope, he shut Tyler down. What did you do to him? He burned in my cheeks. My mind screamed to tell him to blurt out the truth. He kissed me and I let him, but my lips stayed sealed. Julian shook his head, still gaping. I swear the world is ending. He's protecting you. Next thing you'll tell me he's writing you love notes. I forced a weak laugh, staring down at my tray, the mashed potatoes congealing in their plastic square. I couldn't tell my best friend the truth. Couldn't admit that some dark, dangerous part of me was grateful for his claim. That I felt safer with a shadow looming over me than with the cafeteria full of faces pretending not to watch. By the end of the day, my head was a storm I couldn't outrun. The kisses silenced the cafeteria, his stare. Every time I replayed it, I felt like I was splitting in half. Half of me wanting to bury it, half of me desperate for him to look at me to say something. So when I saw Dylan at the parking lot leaning against his car with his friends laughing too loud, I did the unthinkable. I walked straight toward him. Julian hissed behind me. Noah, are you insane? But my legs didn't stop. The laughter dimmed as Dylan's friends noticed me. A ripple of surprise passed through the group. Me, the nerd, the punching bag approaching. Their golden boy uninvited. Dylan's grin snapped off his face like a light switched. His body stiffened. He straightened. Eyes narrowed as if telling me to back off. What do you want? His voice was harsh, cutting. I swallow, my pulse racing. The history project. He paused for a while and just glared at me before saying, fine, get in. His friends erupted with questions. Wait, what? Since when do you hang out with him? But Dylan ignored them, climbing into the driver's seat. My knees nearly buckled as I slid into the passenger side. We drove silently until we got to his house. And it was exactly what I expected and nothing I wanted to see. Big, cold, a cavern disguised as a home. Marble floors that echoed under my sneakers. Walls lined with abstract art no one could possibly love. The faint smell of lemon polish instead of food or warmth. It screamed money but whispered emptiness. I hugged my backpack tighter as he led me upstairs to his room. The trophies hit first, lined neatly on shelves. Rows of gleaming gold figures frozen mid-sprint, mid-throw, mid-leap. Dozens of them, all identical smiles on their polished plates. Dylan Hayes, first place. And the walls, not a single photo, not a single smile. I thought about my messy wall of family pictures. About how long he'd stared at them, and suddenly I understood. We sat up at his desk. He cracked a book open, leaned back like he was fine, perfectly fine. Nothing to see here. But the silence was unbearable. Every time I looked up, his profile twisted me up inside. He wasn't even going to mention it. The kiss, the cafeteria, anything. Finally, when his eyes flicked up and caught me staring, he arched a brow. What? Something on my face, nerd? He flared to my chest. First of all, nerd is not an insult. And second, I snapped my notebook shut. I need an apology. His head tilted, mocking. For what? For kissing me in my house without permission. His grin was slow, dangerous. Really? Don't tell me that was your first kiss? My stomach dropped. What? No, but still. Then why are you so pissy? I opened my mouth, floundering. Because you can't just... You don't. I didn't even get the words out before his hand tangled in my hair and yanked me forward. His mouth crashed on mine, hot and deliberate, his tongue brushing past my lips before I could think. A helpless sound slipped from my throat. And then he was gone just as quickly, leaving me dazed, lips tingling. What the hell was that for? I breathed. He smirked. I thought you were complaining because you wanted more. What? That doesn't even... He didn't let me finish. His mouth claimed mine again, rougher this time. Teeth scraping in my lower lip until sparks shot down my spine. His grip of my hair tightened, holding me there as his tongue swept deeper, stealing the air from my lungs. Instinct betrayed me. I kissed him back, hungry, shivering at the taste of him, until he pulled away again, leaving me wrecked and reeling. Now that is payback for you kissing me first. His smirk widened. My face burnt. That's not the same thing. Before I could scramble for more words, a sharp knock rattled the door. Mr. Hayes, a voice announced, clipped formal. Your father is home. He requests your presence. I froze. Dylan's smirk slipped for a split second. His whole body went taut, like a string pulled too tight. Yeah, he muttered. Be there. The footsteps retreated. Silence swelled in their wake. He slammed his book shut. We're done. I gathered my things quickly, unsettled by the shift in his face. We went downstairs together. The living room was just as cold as the rest of the house. Stiff leather couches, a massive fireplace that had probably never known fire. Dylan's father stood near the mantel. He was taller, older, sharper, a Swede without a wrinkled silver hair combed to perfection. His eyes flicked over me, once dismissive, before locking on Dylan. Coach called his father, said voice like ice. Said, your performance was slipping this week. Dylan's jaw clenched. It's one practice. One practice becomes 2, then 3. Is that what you want? His father's voice rose, controlled but cutting. We don't accept mediocrity in this family, Dylan. Not from you. I'm not mediocre. Then prove it. Train harder. Push further. I didn't raise a son to settle for second place. Something in Dylan's face cracked just for a moment. His fist curled. Can't you just accept that I'm doing my best? A crash came from the coffee table, his father's fist knocking a glass over. Shards skittered across the floor. Your best is not enough, young man, his father snapped. I flinched at the sound. My heart thudded in my chest. I felt invisible, an intruder in a house of glass, watching Dylan suffocate under expectations that weighed heavier than his own trophies. Dylan spun on his heel and stormed out. I scrambled after him, clutching my bag like a shield. He didn't speak, not as we tore down the driveway, not as he gripped the wheel so hard his knuckles whitened. Dylan. He pressed harder on the gas. The world blurred past, headlights streaking like comets. Dylan slowed down. He didn't hear me. Or maybe he didn't care. His jaw was locked, his chest heaving. Fear shot through me, sharp and cold. Dylan Hayes, my voice cracked. Calm the hell down before you get us killed. At the sound of his full name, he flinched. His foot eased off the gas. The car slowed, and we coasted into a quiet park. He killed the engine, shoved the door open, and strode to the hood. He sat on the metal shoulders, hunched, staring at nothing. The night air was cool, carrying the faint smell of cut grass. I hugged my bag as I followed him slowly, my mind still racing because in that house, in that moment, I'd seen it. The golden boy wasn't untouchable. He was trapped, and right now I don't know if I should fear him or feel sorry for him. I didn't speak at first. My knees were still shaky from the drive, my chest still tight from shouting his name. I kept waiting for him to say something. Snap at me, call me a nerd, anything that felt familiar, but the silence pressed down, thick and suffocating. I finally forced myself forward, my backpack bumping against my hip. You almost killed us back there. He didn't look at me. You're still alive, aren't you? I bristled. That's not the point. You can't just... My voice broke. I hated that it broke. You can't just lose it like that. His head tilted back, eyes fixed on the sky, jaw clenched. For a long moment, I thought that was it, that he'd stonewall me, lock himself up again. But then, in a voice so low I barely caught it, he muttered, You don't get it. Something in my chest twisted. Then explain it to me. His laugh was short and sharp, but it didn't sound real. Why would I? So you can run back to your friends and say, Guess what, Hayes isn't perfect after all. The words stung, but I didn't back down. I'm not asking for gossip. I'm asking because I swallowed hard. because I saw your face in there. And it wasn't the Dylan who smirks in a hall or throws me against lockers. It was someone else that got him. His head snapped toward me, eyes flashing. But it wasn't anger. It was fear. Careful, Noah, he said, voice rough. You don't know what you're poking at. Then tell me. We stared at each other, the night buzzing with crickets and far-off traffic. I felt stupid, standing there clutching my bag like a shield, but I couldn't back down now, not after everything. Finally, he exhaled, a sound like air leaking from a balloon. He dragged a hand through his hair, fingers trembling. You want to know the truth? His voice cracked, and it startled me more than any punch he'd ever thrown. The truth is, I don't get to be me. Ever. Not in that house, not on that field, not in this whole goddamn town. I froze. He looked away, jaw tight. I'm not Dylan. I'm Hayes. Their golden boy, their legacy, their puppet. He spat the word like poison. Every trophy, every touchdown, every perfect grade. It's not for me. It's for him, for them. I don't even know what I want anymore. I don't get to want. The words hung heavy in the air, so raw, they didn't sound like him at all. I hate being their golden boy. His voice rose bitter now. I hate having to just take it while my father tells me that I'm nothing if I'm not the best. He slammed a fist against the hood, the sound echoing through the empty park. I jumped, but I didn't step back. He kept going, words spilling now, jagged and sharp. I can't breathe in that house. I can't even look in the mirror without seeing him staring back. And then his breath hitched. Then you show up. You with your smart mouth and your stupid answers in class and the way you don't back down even when I'm trying to crush you. And I hate it. I hate you because when you look at me, I don't know who the hell I am anymore. For a second, I couldn't move. My heart slammed against my ribs, too fast, too loud. You don't hate me, I whispered. His eyes snapped to mine, raw and burning. Don't tell me what I feel. Then stop lying. My voice shook, but I forced it out. If you hated me, you wouldn't have stopped them from bullying me. You wouldn't have kissed me twice. His breath caught. He stared at me, every muscle tense like he was one wrong move from breaking apart completely. I shouldn't want this, he said hoarsely. You shouldn't let me. Something inside me cracked open. I didn't know if it was fear or anger or something dangerously close to longing. Then stop pretending you don't. You're only doing yourself more harm that way. The silence that followed was thick enough to choke on. His chest heaved. Mine did too. We sat there side by side, with Dylan looking at me like I was the only person in the world who could see him. He drove me back to my place silently. We didn't say much when we parted. But from that day, everything shifted. It was barely noticeable if you weren't me. Dylan didn't suddenly start being nice. He didn't smile at me across the halls or wave me over to sit with him at lunch like we were buddies now. But he also didn't shove me into lockers anymore. Didn't trip me in the hall. Didn't toss snide comments my way every time I opened my mouth. Instead, when we passed each other in the corridors, he gave me a head tilt. Just that, like a silent acknowledgement. It was nothing really. But from Dylan Hayes, nothing was everything. Julian noticed, of course. He leaned over at lunch, squinting at me as I picked up my sandwich in peace. So, we're going to talk about the fact that you've been bully-free for what, a week now. I tried to play dumb. What do you mean? He snorted. What do you mean, me? You know exactly what I mean. The lunchroom has been suspiciously peaceful and He pointed a straw at me. You're actually eating sitting upright, not hiding in the corner like a war refugee. Wow! Thanks for the imagery. I'm serious, Noah. His grin spread slow. Wicked. All it took was a kiss, huh? Damn! If we'd known that was the trick, we could have saved months of soggy lunches and tearful rants under the bleachers. My face burned as a blush crept through my cheeks. Julian! He cackled, slapping the table. Oh my God, you are starting to like him. Shut up, I hissed, glancing around. A few kids looked our way. My pulse spiked. It's not like that. Julian leaned in, eyes narrowing with mock suspicion. Uh-huh. My senses are tingling. You've been staring at him more than usual, too. I stiffened. I haven't. Yes, you have. You do this thing with your eyebrows. Like you're trying to figure out a math problem, except the math problem is 6 feet of dumb jock muscle. I glared. Nothing is going on. He raised both brows, unimpressed. Mm-hmm. I shoved the last bite of my sandwich into my mouth just to avoid answering. But inside, I couldn't deny it. I didn't even know what was going on anymore. Dylan wasn't tormenting me, but he wasn't exactly friendly either. It was something in between. He was softening, not much, but enough to make me restless. Enough to make me wonder what it all meant. The history project gave us another excuse to meet again. This time he came over to my house. Mom fussed over him, of course offering snacks and asking polite questions. He brushed them off with tight smiles. We did some of the work. Mostly we danced around each other with words. Small talk stitched between the occasional real moments. It was confusing, frustrating, but dare I admit it, better than before. And I was starting to really like him. But still, I can't get over the fact that he had bullied me for over a year for reasons I couldn't justify yet and still hadn't apologized once. That following night, as I was sprawled on my bed with my notes, my phone buzzed. A message from an unsaved number. Can I come over? I stared at it, my heart jumping into my throat. I didn't need to ask who it was. I typed back, now. The reply came almost instantly. Yeah, my fingers shook. Mom was home. It was late. This was insane. But before I could think of an excuse, headlights washed across my window. He was already here. When I opened the door, the sight of him knocked the breath from my lungs. His cheek was split, a thin red line under his eye, his lips slightly swollen. Dylan, I whispered, horrified. He brushed past me without a word into the living room. His movements were stiff, tense, like he'd shatter if I touched him. What happened? Nothing. That's not nothing. I stepped closer, heart pounding. Did your father do it? His voice cracked like a whip, but there was no heat in it, just exhaustion. I hesitated, then quietly said, sit. He did. I fetched the first aid kit Mom kept under the sink and knelt in front of him. His eyes tracked me, unreadable as I dabbed at the split with antiseptic. He hissed, jaw tight. You're supposed to be tough, I said softly, banter and trying to make it lighter. He didn't answer. The silence stretched until I thought I couldn't bear it. Then suddenly his eyes dropped. His shoulders shook once, twice before a ragged breath escaped him. Then a tear managed to escape his eyes. I froze. Dylan Hayes was crying. Something in me shattered. Without thinking, I reached up, brushing a tear away with my thumb. He flinched at the touch, then leaned into it just barely, like he couldn't help himself. And then he broke his face, buried against my shoulder, his arms wrapping around me tight. I held him, heart thundering, as his body shook with sobs he couldn't contain. All I could do was whisper, it's okay. You're okay. I've got you. And he let me hold him close like that. His weight against me was overwhelming. Not in the way it used to be. Not the suffocating slam of a bully shoving me against lockers. This was different. His chest heaving, his face buried in my shoulder, his arms clinging like I was the last thing keeping him from drowning. I pictured Dylan 1,000 ways, smirking, cruel, untouchable. I never pictured him like this. Raw, trembling human. I'm sorry, he whispered, voice breaking for everything. All the crap I did to you. It was dumb. It was cruel. No excuses. I need you to know I'm sorry. I stiffened for a second. Dylan Hayes, my tormentor, my bully, apologizing. I didn't know if I was ready to forgive him. Maybe I wasn't. But hearing those words, seeing him crack like that, something in me loosened. So I held him tighter. I didn't push or question or fight. I just let him come apart in my arms. When his sobs finally eased, I loosened my arms, pulling back just enough to see his face. His lashes were wet, cheeks streaked, jaw trembling. Don't, he muttered, eyes darting away. Don't look at me like that. Like what? My voice was gentle. Like I'm weak. I shook my head. You're not weak, Dylan. Crying doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. His lips pressed together like he wanted to argue, but the fight drained out of him. When Dylan finally pulled away from the sink, cheeks blotchy from tears and jaw tight, like he was trying to shove everything back inside, I thought he'd just leave, walk out, slam the door, pretend none of this happened. Instead, he muttered, you got a couch or something? Bedroom's closer, I said before thinking. My stomach twisted immediately. Bedroom, him, me alone. He nodded, grabbed the gauze from my hand, and headed that way like he owned the place. I scrambled after him. By the time I stepped inside, he was sprawled across my bed like it was his. Shoes still on. Typical Dylan Hayes. You're unbelievable, I muttered, kicking his sneakers off the edge of my comforter. Comfortable. He shot back, smirking faintly, but the smirk didn't reach his eyes. His face was still raw from crying. I sat on the edge of the mattress, notebook in hand, trying not to stare. trying not to think about how surreal it was. Dylan Hayes in my room, not tormenting me, not sneering at me, but lying there like maybe he belonged. Then his gaze flicked toward my notebook sitting there half open on my nightstand. I followed his eyes, heat flooding my face. "Don't you dare!" Of course he did. He reached over, snatched it up before I could stop him. "Hey." I lunged for it, but he leaned back, flipping it open with a smirk, tugging at the corner of his lip. "What's this, dear diary? It's not a diary. Looks like one." He skimmed the page, eyebrows arching. Chapter 1, Notes on a Tragic Hero. His grin widened. "Wow, nerd. You really live up to the title." I grabbed for it again and he yanked it out of reach. "Give it back. Not until you admit you write about me." I froze. My stomach plummeted. "What you do, don't you?" His smirk was infuriating. "All those times you stare at me in class, you've been writing about me." "I know. That's why my face burned." "It's not like that." "Oh, it's exactly like that." He held the notebook high above his head, taunting. I launched myself at him, grabbing his wrist, shoving against his chest. We toppled back onto the bed, the notebook tumbling to the floor. He laughed. "Easy, tiger." "Shut up." I wrestled with him, trying to pin his arm. But he was stronger, faster. In seconds, he had me flipped, pressed down his body over mine, his grin infuriatingly smug. "Got you," he murmured. My chest heaved under his breath fanned hot across my cheek. And suddenly the laughter bled out, leaving only silence. His eyes locked on mine. The smirk faded, his gaze dropped just barely to my mouth. My heart stopped. "Dylan," I whispered, but it wasn't a protest. It was permission. Something raw flickered across his face. Then he bent down, closing the distance. His lips crushed against mine, rough and hungry, and I melted. It was desperate messy, the kind of kiss that left no space for air or doubt. His hand slid up, bracing beside my head, his other fist gripping the blanket like he'd fall apart if he let go. I kissed him back, harder than I thought I could. Months of anger and confusion and tension poured out in that collision. When we finally tore apart, gasping, his forehead pressed against mine. "See?" I whispered, my voice trembling. "You don't hate me." His laugh was shaky, almost bitter, still figuring that out. Who kisses someone they hate? And before I could think of an answer, his mouth was back on mine. This time slower, deeper, like he decided he wasn't running anymore. And neither was I. When Dylan finally pulled away, his lips swollen, his breath uneven. He didn't smirk. He didn't taunt. He just whispered soft enough that I almost thought I imagined it. "Good night, Noah." And then, like it was the most natural thing in the world, he kissed me again, quick, gentle, almost shy. By the time the door clicked shut behind him, I was still sitting on my bed, staring at the space he'd left, heart hammering against my ribs. The next day at school, he didn't look at me twice, walked in with his usual swagger, fell in with his friends, and laughed too loud in the hallway. And honestly, I wasn't disappointed, not even close, because I hadn't expected him to walk through the doors and announce we were together, or to sit next to me in the cafeteria, holding my hand. That wasn't Dylan Hayes. He was still figuring himself out, still carrying weight I couldn't begin to imagine. And me, well, I liked him, so I wasn't going to push. I'd just be here. Julian, of course, nearly combusted when I told him. "You what?" he shrieked when I finally told him. "You kissed him again. Wait. He kissed you again? Dude, do you have any idea what this means?" I bit back a smile. That I'm an idiot. That my best friend is living a BL drama and didn't even tell me until now. He clutched his chest like I'd committed a crime. "Do you know how many months of cafeteria torture I suffered with you? All it took was one kiss to flip the script. One kiss. You should have done this freshman year and save us both." I shoved him lightly. Julian shut up. In class, Dylan started talking to me like it wasn't weird. Not just insults, actual conversations. In the cafeteria, he passed by and without breaking stride, dropped an apple on my tray. Didn't look at me, didn't say a word, but the smirk tugging at his mouth gave him away. Julian almost choked on his soda. "Oh my God, he courted you with fruit?" I rolled my eyes, but I kept the apple, ate every bite. We started hanging out more, working on the project, then not working on it at all, studying, then ditching the books to argue about movies or wrestle on my bed until we were both breathless and laughing. Every time he leaned in, every time his lips brushed mine, it got bolder, deeper, hungrier, until kissing him felt as natural as breathing. One night we were tangled up on my bed again, his hand pressing my chest. Mine buried in his hair when his phone buzzed. He froze? I glanced at the screen. Dad. He stared at it, jaw tight. The buzzing went on and on. Then Dylan hit decline, tossed the phone face down. I blinked at him. You just... Yeah. His voice was steady, but his eyes were dark. I'm done jumping every time he snaps his fingers. Dylan? He cut me off with a kiss, his tongue exploring every corner of my mouth, and I moaned shamelessly against the hotness of his body. And when he pulled back, he smirked, but it wasn't the cruel smirk I knew from before. It was lighter, braver. You think I'm a coward? He murmured, voice low, teasing against my lips. No, I whispered. I think you're finally figuring out what you want. His gaze burned into mine, and then he rolled me onto my back, pinning me to the mattress, mouth finding mine again. This kiss wasn't desperate like the first, wasn't soft like the goodnight. It was deliberate, seductive. His tongue teasing the seam of my lips, his fingers lacing with mine and pressing my hand into the sheets. I gasped against him, clutching his shirt, pulling him closer. He smiled into the kiss like he knew exactly what he was doing to me. By the time we broke apart again, both of us breathless, my heart was gone. Absolutely gone. I didn't need a big declaration. I didn't need him to hold my hand in front of the whole school. Because right here, right now, tangled up in each other's breath, I knew one thing for sure. I am bully-free and I wasn't going to end high school a virgin. Thanks for listening to this story. If you enjoy this story, share your enthusiasm in the comment section and don't forget to hit the subscribe and notification buttons so you don't miss any story uploads. See you in the next one.